in New York City in Central Park a few days ago with Karen Cooper and a young man by the name of Christian Cooper who was simply here watching birds. This young lady made a statement that he was assaulting her. She called 911, became very theatrical, and at the end of it all, it was all about nothing. I'm going to call attention to First Deputy Tucker. His statement that the police department couldn't do anything and they had bigger fish to fry was so out of the loop. Everyone in the police department and everyone in the public needed to see that, guess what? We're going to make this right and at least give this woman a summons, at least bring her into the station house, at least address what's going on in our communities. We cannot allow people to constantly keep victimizing, making false statements against black men, against any men, but more especially in this day and age of what's going on. Police officers responded here, they could have been hurt. Insensitive statement that they made. That being said, I'll now turn it over to the Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. I totally agree with what was just said, and I want to thank my colleague, Borough President Eric Adams. I want to thank the wonderful public advocate Jamani Williams and the council member Helen Rosenthal and everyone else for being here today. Like many New Yorkers, and I hope all New Yorkers, I was horrified when I saw the video of this woman calling 911 and using the other person's race as a factor to draw urgency to what she was doing, which was illegal. I spend tons of time with constituents, 9 to 9, every other time, keep your dog on a leash. He is breaking the law. Amy Cooper leveraged her illegal situation and standing as a attempt to have the police act harshly towards an innocent man. She contributed to making Mr. Cooper feel unsafe in a park where she was wrong. And I want to say my husband is a bird watcher. Bird watching is a wonderful, wonderful activity in our park. He is phenomenal. She was breaking the rules by having her dog unleashed. And as I said, it's a creature complaint. We need to acknowledge Mr. Cooper's dignity and his humanity was undermined by her escalating the situation and being a racist. I'm very thankful that Mr. Cooper is safe. I love seeing his sister talk so eloquently on television, and that he let all of us see the injustice that took place. We know that all too often these kinds of incidents could have turned out much worse. We know that African Americans and African American men in particular face these kinds of unjust and deep-seated suspicions each and every day. And sadly, these suspicions don't go away in a global pandemic, which is what we're in today. That's why we have to make sure that people are held accountable. And that's why I think, as we heard earlier, that Ms. Cooper should be charged with something, filing a false police report, and there are lots of former police officers here today who know better what she should be filed with. Our park belongs to everyone. And I have to say, particularly bird watchers, we won't let this horrible incident undo the long and hard work of racial justice that every single person here and most New Yorkers work for. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gail.
From out in the audience, if we look at Gail and our Councilwoman Rosenthal, you see this call is not only made by these black men who are here. Mind you, some of them are former law enforcement officers. And we have to raise our voice on a united front. And public advocate Jamani Williams has dedicated his life to do so, and I'm glad that he joined us here as well. Clearly, Amy Cooper has joined the ranks of Carolyn Bryant, who accused Emmett Tills, Charles Stewart, who accused a black man of shooting his wife, Susan Smith, who accused black men for taking her child and killing her children, Deborah Sykes, who accused a black man of rape. After he spent 19 years in jail, DNA proved that he did not participate in the crime. When you look at the historical analysis of individuals believing that the police department is their tool to impact the safety of black and brown men, This is what we are outraged over. And those of us who are former law enforcement officers, we know how often that tool is incorrectly used. Those responding police officers should have looked at that tape and immediately arrested Amy Cooper based on sections 240-50 subdivision 3. You cannot forcibly commit a crime when you reach out or accuse a crime when you reach out and know that your actions are illegal in nature, that a crime did not take place. The penal law lays it out clear. So for anyone in the police department to state they have bigger fish to fry, while black men are frying inside correctional facilities because of false accusations, that is the wrong mindset and that's the wrong attitude. The attitude should be the same way we fought drugs with zero tolerance. We need to fight those wrong accusations with zero tolerance. I am calling on the commissioner to send detectives to the victim's house, look at the tape or pull it offline, and then the next stop is send those detectives to Amy's house and put her in handcuffs to send a strong message that you will not use the police department to go after individuals. Her dramatics of acting as though the man was assaulting her. Her dramatics of continuing to say he was threatening her life. It was clearly her way of attempting to get those officers to respond and cause some type of police action. Imagine if that video was not there. Do you know how many cases we have responded to in my 22 years career when you did not have a video? In 1984, when I started policing, everyone did not have a camera. If he didn't have a camera to show exactly what took place, he could have been incarcerated and his life would have been destroyed. So we want an apology for the police department. And we want to sit down with Commissioner Shea and tell him he needs to set the tone. You cannot exist, particularly in a gentrified New York, where many people who are new arrivals have never lived in a diverse society like New York City. 47% of Brooklynites speak a language other than English at home. Many people have not walked through a park like Central Park, where you see the diversity everywhere. Many people have not rode our subways. Many people have not lived in a city like New York City. So if the police department take a dismissive attitude to someone intentionally calling a police officer on an innocent person, an assault in progress is a serious incident where officers are going to respond in a quick fashion. That's what she did. And we can't just say it was another bad day at the park. We can't blame this on COVID-19 because it has happened far too often across America. And that is why we're here, and that is why we are outraged. So we can arrest someone for pulling a fire alarm. We could surely arrest someone for attempting to destroy and burn down the life of an innocent person. He was a bird watcher. He was in the park. He was documenting someone doing an illegal action. That's what we say New Yorkers are supposed to do. He was a safe distance away. He was not using any inflammatory language. He did everything he was supposed to do as a New Yorker. And the most important thing he did is to use his camera. Because I am really afraid if he didn't have that camera, he would have had a different outcome. And this goes so far and wide. We're not here only because of Amy. We need to be clear on that. We're not outraged just because of what happened in this park. We're outraged because there's a historical role of blaming black and brown men for crimes. And all we do is say, sorry, wrong day, bad day. No. Amy Cooper must be arrested. Let her send a message for everyone who thinks that this is acceptable and tolerated. Let's finally break that history of what happened in this park so it doesn't happen in other parks in our city. I want to now turn it over to our public advocate, Jimani Williams.
Councilwoman Rosenthal, everyone's here. I'm not okay. I'm not okay today. I want to give everybody permission to say they are not okay. I want to give the black community permission to say you're not okay. I woke up today with, what the fuck? I am tired. I'm tired. I have yet to watch the video of Ahmaud Arbery. It's too much. I have not watched the video of George Floyd. It's too much. For those who think falsely calling 911 on a black person have other fish to fry. Talk to George's family. Talk to Tamir Rice's family. Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner. Talk to their families and say if you have other fish to fry. Black people in general have to go to work the next day and pretend like they are all right. Black women in particular cannot say anything or they're viewed as angry black women. But not only do people get to piss on the community can't even say it's pissed. 31 years ago, not too far away, there was a horrific rape of a woman.
Right.
And instead of going out to find the perpetrator who did that horror, they found any black man that they could and falsely accused him. Someone took out a full-page ad 31 years ago and said that those black men should be executed.
Talk about it.
That man is the president of the United States of America today. I am not okay today. That woman was so comfortable in her privilege that even being recorded, she felt like nothing would happen. And I saw as her false anger escalated toward the end, when she realized she had to put more emphasis on an African-American person attacking her to get the response that she needed. I am not okay today. I really am not. We are trying to deal with tens of thousands of people dying from COVID, disproportionately in the black and brown community. There is no bigger fish to fry than the institution of racism and bigotry that is pervasive in every damn institution across this city, state, and this country, period. And to have an NYPD continually sit up there and say they don't have any discriminatory institution that they deal with, that nothing about them has to do with discrimination or racism. To then say we have bigger fish to fry, how dare you? How dare you? People are dying. They're dying.
Well said. And you know, you can't normalize pain. And I think that what you feel from Jimani is that, you know, this is real. And those who have not experienced this daily, you know, he gave you the layers and layers and layers of watching black and brown men being arrested for not wearing masks, seeing a knee on their neck, seeing the gardeners, and then how dare you even complain? You know, how dare you even complain? That's what he's saying. How dare you think you're going to complain about what happened? And we're saying today, those days are over. We are not going to silently stand back and watch this happen. I want to commend the immediate action of her employer. So many employers have become a safe haven for this type of action. That immediate swift action, the immediate swift action is what's needed. Now it's time for the NYPD to take immediate swift action and do an apprehension. And that is what clearly what the public advocate was saying. After years and years of watching this is a high priority. We don't want to hear about, we're dealing with a crisis situation. We've been dealing with a crisis situation for far too long. Councilwoman.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Helen Rosenthal. I'm a member of the New York City Council. I represent the Upper West Side, including Central Park. While the Upper West Side is proudly home to different types of people, we are relatively more affluent and white. And for that reason alone, many of us do not experience police brutality the way our neighbors do. Both disturbing recent videos and data have shown disproportionate police enforcement of social distancing, with Black and brown people being far more likely to receive summonses or brutality for non-compliance. As the racist and false allegations made against Mr. Cooper for bird watching clearly illustrate, the violence of racism is weaponized in the daily interaction of so many New Yorkers. Calling the police on a Black man is too often a death sentence. And what this video perfectly captures is the willingness to make that call and to leverage that power. It is tragic that Mr. Cooper is so familiar with this reality that he has published works to guide and protect his peers on the dangers of bird watching while Black. Central Park should be a natural respite for all New Yorkers, where no one should encounter harassment and abuse. I take this to heart as a white woman. We must confront how we weaponize power and redirect it in service of equity. Thank you.
Walking while Black, bird watching while Black.
What's next?
Among many others.
That is powerful. So I think it's important to hear from some of the young men who experience this on a regular basis. We're going to hear from Quincy Luzincourt, and Anthony Fickle.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank the elected officials who are standing here today, especially the Brooklyn Borough President, Eric Adams. I'm here to present the strategy for Black lives. We write to you today as an array of student leaders, community activists, and young adult advocates who are deeply committed to reforming our criminal justice system, combating police brutality, and fighting systemic injustice. In light of the hapless deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, we are compelled to take robust steps in order to achieve justice for those who are victims of police brutality and racially motivated violence. We feel that righteous channels of action in this endeavor are to focus on accountability, implement effective policies, and strategize new approaches in policing as a whole. Therefore, we demand the following: the implementation of a policy that would strongly penalize those who falsely call the police, especially those that are racially motivated. An assembly with the NYPD Commissioner and the Mayor of New York City who needs to hear direct communication from
our community. The elimination of the blue wall of silence. Encouraging the dismantlement of this wall will improve transparency, indicate our areas of improvement, and ensure that police officers are held accountable for their actions. The appointment of an independent inspector general. Through this appointment, to establish further oversight of police policies and behavior that needs to be accomplished. The revision of the vetting process for police officers. The commitment of elected prosecutors of New York to hold those accountable. And lastly, the community must and has to be involved in ensuring their own safety. We are tired of black and brown lives dying at the hand of law enforcement, dying at the hands of racists, with little to no justice being served. This is a call to action that must be heeded by our elected officials, administrations, prosecutors, and policymakers. As a collective of concerned citizens, we will do everything in our power to hold our representatives accountable, make our voices heard, and demand justice for those who need it. Thank you.
We're open to any questions you may have at this time. Yes.
Hello, President. What do you think an appropriate response would have been? Just appearance ticket, a summons, an arraignment?
It should have been, if I was the responding supervisor to the scene, I reports to a law enforcement officer or agency a alleged occurrence or incident which did not in fact occur. She's guilty of that crime. And so that in itself, the tape spelled it out. And so the police take the action, let her go to court and determine the outcome of it, or use the restorative justice aspect of it. But nothing sends a stronger message of what's not going to be tolerated is when someone is placed in handcuffs for carrying out a particular action. We didn't do that. And if we're going to use restorative justice, I support it. If we're going to use any methods to show that this is not tolerated, I support it. But what Jamani said is crucial. Don't come to Brownsville with a hammer only, but you come to other communities with all the tools in your toolbox. We have stated this before. You know, you use the most aggressive form of policing when you're in certain parts of the city, but in other parts of the city, you're rational, you're thought-provoking, you are slow in movement. And then the top can't send a message that we have bigger fish to fry. That's the wrong message. That gives condolences to those who are comfortable in that we can use the police as a tool against people. We're seeing that too much, particularly in the city that's experiencing a high level of gentrification.
I'm going to ask you a little bit about, of course, black men very upset over this issue, and then seeing the issue in Minneapolis. Can you respond to that, and Damani, about that video and hearing that again? I can't breathe, and people saying that to officers, and he still didn't get up off his knee on the man's neck.
Well, it's about where we're at right now is what atmosphere are we creating? When you see officers in Eric Gardner case walk free, when you see the Diallo walk free, when you see this woman here walk free, he said we would have conducted a warrant background check, and we would have given her a desk appearance ticket when she would show up in court.
Can I speak on that?
Yes.
Sorry. And, you know, I've struggled with this too because I'm a big proponent of restorative justice, and I want to make that clear. So I'm very happy that the Human Rights Commission is looking into this. They also have the ability to find and provide other remedies. But concurrently, what has been most frustrating me is that the NYPD doesn't hesitate to use its tools to summons and provide violations in certain communities, particularly black and brown. Why then would they hesitate to even provide a summons or something for a woman that has called 911 unjustly? So that's what I'm grappling with. You have tools that you use in certain communities, but you don't use it in others. And instead, your response is we have bigger fish to fry. That is unacceptable.
I just want to add, her dog was off the leash.
and so we need to be clear with Penal Law 240-50, Section 3. It clearly lays out the crime. I had my legal team. I knew from studying as a captain, and I had my legal team look up what the crime calls for, and it's clear that. And one of my legal team members is a former prosecutor. If he or she gratuitously approached to these circumstances. Now, the recent case, the mayor did what? He immediately fired the police. Yeah. He did what was within his span of control and said, I'm going to set the tone. Yes, we're not seeing that across America, and we're not seeing it here. We're not seeing a very clear statement. You fight to get your job back, but right now you're not going to be on our streets doing the things that you think you're going to do. That was the police department of yesteryears. We're destroying all the fight that we did.
I also want to say this is about respect. You can't come into our communities and not respect us. Treat us like everyone else gets treated. You can't. We command respect by the way we talk, by the way we act, by the way we walk, and we deserve the respect that we command. Too often, if you see what happened in Minnesota last night, that could have been here. And I'm going to tell you something, if we don't watch it, it can be here. People are tired. People are fed up. I'm standing here because of my sons and my grandson and my grandfather and everyone else that has come before me on this platform. As a former black police officer, I had to deal with white, black, and everything in between. And guess what? I always had to be fair. If I wasn't fair, you better believe they called me on it. So at the end of the day, it's about respect. You have to start coming in our communities and respecting us. And once you respect us, the respect will be returned. Right now, this is taking a turn for the worse. Minnesota was what it could be. Imagine that in New York City. Imagine had this young man, I'm a professional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. You held this man's carotid artery for 9 minutes. In 20 seconds, you go to sleep. I don't know what happens in 9 minutes. I'm not a coroner.
Die.
Oh, what's your name? Sorry.
Police Officer Cleveland Bannister, retired. Cleveland Bannister.
You said you didn't see the video, am I right?
Me, no.
But hearing that term,
I saw clips. I
I
saw
can't
pictures.
breathe. What goes through your mind, John?
You know, I would say everybody to link to Eric Garner. I just want to make sure we put our sister Breonna Taylor in there. You mentioned Amara. Obviously, you go back to Eric Garner. You know, one, I just want to make sure this is not new to the black community. If you go back 30 years and we didn't have the advent of cell phones, what happened was people didn't believe us. What makes it even worse now is we have the cell phones and sometimes shit still don't happen. And so we have to be clear about that. And that's because we have people saying we have bigger fish to fry. And that's because people are ignoring the fact of what institutional racism has meant from the inception to this country to right now. And you can never fully legislate away bigotry. But you can't change a culture if you won't even admit that the problem is there. And that's what I'm seeing in too many institutions like the NYPD here. How many times will they tell us that race and discrimination is no issue? Whether it was stop, question, and frisk, whether it was broken windows, whether it was marijuana, whether it was Eric Garner. How many times are we going to hear that? When the numbers say something fully, when we see people being handed out masks on Chelsea Pier and punched in the face in East New York. Like, at what point will we believe our own eyes? And that's what it is here. How many times do people say stop playing the race card? Slavery was all on years ago. Why you keep bringing this up? This is real. And we have to walk this. I remember asking people for the time when I was younger and they clutched their purse. This is what you go through being black in this country. And you have to learn how to adapt with it and say, okay, this is it, but I got to move forward anyway. But there's some time when you could stop and say, I'm not okay, this is not okay, and we're going to fight back and push back. And so we need leadership here in this city and in this state. And I have to repeat again, it also is institutional when we look at the response to COVID. We are all trying to deal with the repercussions of our leaders not responding properly. Just finding nitro on the map maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Look at our nursing homes. This happens over and over again, and it is all interconnected. And we have to have an honest conversation about it. But I'm tired of talking also. I want to see some action.
Yes, sir.
Period. There's a city budget coming up in June. I want to see some action. You are not going to cut all of the black and brown youth jobs and leave the NYPD intact. That ain't going to happen.
That's why you pay.
That ain't happening.
Couple more questions. Anyone else?
The frustration, of course. What I was surprised about, I told my staff, you know, what precinct did they take Amy to? And they stated she was not arrested. And then when I heard the comments later, and I think that's Cleveland stated, I think about my son, he's 25 years old. The biggest indictment to me is that, as the councilwoman stated, this bird watcher had a list of how to protect yourself bird watching by blood. That's an indictment. And so there was a level of, you build up, you know, what Jamani and I have been doing over the last few weeks, talking about the disproportionality of the COVID response. You build up what's happening all over the country. And then you look at the historical action. All of that builds up, you know, and it impacts you. And it's just personally, there was a level of just real frustration and anger. And the slogan, Black Lives Matter, has been replaced with White Lies Matter. The lie of that woman, if that film wasn't there, trust me, there would have been a different outcome.
Can I say
One more question.
I wanted to say, you know, when I was arrested how many years ago as a councilman, this man was a Harvard grad, right? If that's happening to us, what's happening to the young people on the street? What's happening to them? I sat here also and spoke about the pain that I'm feeling. I am so blessed from a sense of privilege. I'm healthy, my immediate family's healthy. I have a job. What about the people who aren't healthy? The people who are losing their immediate families and have no job? How are they going to cope with this? When they go outside and an officer wants to punch them in the face because they don't have a mask on. This is all the things that we have to think about. And it's very important that we take this seriously as we're coming into the summer. Because all of us are trying really hard to get the city to build back, not what it was, because it wasn't, but better. But we need leaders that are going to work.
Absolutely.
So again, as we close, I really want to thank the co-president of Manhattan, who has been on the right side of these issues, and Councilwoman Rosenthal, you know, as a woman who happens to be white, seeing the importance of getting our city universally understanding that we have to live as one. And that is so important as we move towards a hot uncertainty of our summer. Their voices, their presence is extremely significant. And again, I want to thank them. And again, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.